idea is that it forces people to not value, or wait, no, is that people do not value each other, including themselves. Not fully. Then he goes, so how would we start this? Lives a privileged youth, upper middle class, but not rich. Feels sort of, what's a good way to describe it? He feels disconnected from people, but not particularly interested in them anyway. So he would rationalize it by saying, like, they are all the same. Same anyway. Their awareness of this gives them a sense of ego, even though they do not think they are anything special. So you could say, how could I describe it? Aware of it, but not above it. It being human flaw and general unimportance, insignificance. So their behavior, let's put some behavior parameters. So for example, when faced with a situation, when faced with situation A, their response is, so we'll lay out each situation. That would be situation A, this would be their response. Maybe that icon isn't the best. So A is this, response is that. Okay, so they're faced with, let's say, stranger in public bothering them. Indifferent, confrontational, and and barely even notice. So this would be not that I am superior, but their actions are predictable. They simply want something. There could be no other explanation. Based on this, I do not think less of them. I do not think less of them, but rather operate by the same process. That is, I just want something to be left alone. So thus that explains the response in great detail. So let's create another simple everyday situation for them to follow. They could be contending with superior, could be teacher, boss, family, like a parent. We could specifically do parent. Or let's just do elder. That works too. So the response would be For example, what could it be? Kind of a tricky one. So in general, let's give it more detail, like scolding them despite they're a little bit too loud. So they're scolding them despite their general excellence. They are very good at most things, i.e., schoolwork, their job, their way of living. However, thus they are indifferent to such criticism. In fact, they later leverage their great ability in most things as a tool to justify otherwise intolerable action. In particular, their general lack of regard for others and their safety, and here, let me do a typing test just to get myself in the rhythm a bit more. 1 minute test, hard text, start. This position is all wrong though. I don't need my mouse, so maybe I should. Here, let me restart. This position's a little bit off. Curious robot toy would occasionally talk in rhymes. I already missed a word. It doesn't seem to follow any schedule, but it does talk a lot when the vacuum is one. What the hell is it talking about? Sleeping at night seems to almost always guarantee that I will immediately remember all the Okay, that's good enough. Let's go back. Okay, so they're very good at most things: work, job, etc., school. Lack of regard for others and their safety, and their every mundane concern or act. Someone approaches them. This kind of ties into that last part. Someone approaches them with something they are passionate, concerned, or curious about. So the response would be jaded by the inaction of others. Their expectation would be, if they really cared, they would not rely on me in any way, thus achieve or attempt to achieve the desired outcome on their own, relying on me, who could just as easily seek the opposite outcome, is not only counterproductive, but puts the entire fate of their desire in my hands instead. This could only mean they don't value it to begin with. Truly value it to begin with. So he's discrediting. Can't type right now. Discrediting their very intention with his own, not indifference, but sort of, I guess jaded is the only word. What's the synonym for jaded? That synonym for jaded. With his deadened, I guess that was deadened worldview. Let's do a few more of these. But let's now do a specific situation. Like, after years at a job, they are threatened to be fired because of an incident with a coworker. They are not even aware of the incident. This is seen as feigning innocence or feigning ignorance. As they do not see the conduct as anything wrong to begin with. It doesn't even cross their mind. So what could the activity have been? The activity could have been what's something they could be indifferent to and feel justified about. Well, first we'd have to define, like, what's their general workplace. I'm trying to keep it pretty generic because it doesn't really matter what the specifics are right now. Let's see. So I'm doing all this based off that one beginning line. That's what inspired me to do the whole character, including themselves. So, could have been not helping the coworker with a very important task from which they would not benefit in any way. So the rationalization here would be something along the lines of, it is not that I'm seeking my own benefit at all times. It is rather on hold by virtue of doing this job or any task in the first place. Thus, to overextend it further into helping another with theirs, with their own overextension, this creates an endless loop. Where does it begin and where does it end? If I was helping them for the outcome of their actions, there would always be another person or outcome to frivolously pursue. If it was done for self-gratification, never mind their lack of need for it. The same could be attained countless other ways, and also sort of could be attained in other ways, but what's the other way of putting it? Well, I'll just leave it at that. Let's go to a more of a social situation, like situation, response. So the situation could be a new law is passed that restricts the ability of people to have knives, let's say. Oddly specific. So, what would their response to that be? Maybe that's too random. It should restrict people their ability to can't think of a good one. Something that he doesn't really care about or does normally, but what would the response be? Let's do a different one. They are caught stealing something. I don't know, I'm kind of running a bit dry. Let's leave those scenarios for now. Let's go into more detailed specifics. Doesn't really matter what they look like, where they come from. Well, I gave the background of the middle class, upper middle class. So we could do some things they think or say or do that would characterize them. So they are quiet, reserved, not because they avoid others, but because there is no
3, 2, 1. Rent or buy.
Okay. They require reserve not because they avoid others, but because there's no need for them. And even if such need existed, fulfilling it through them would only create dependence and reliance, thus undermine self-development to achieve the same end in the future. Mindsets and characteristics. So that's a good one. What else? They are lazy, as actions are only worth as much as their outcome. They do not particularly care to be alive, even as being born was not something they had any say or choice in. Thus, they cannot be threatened or held to account on this. They would just as well experience the natural outcome of their actions, even if those actions cost them their life in so simple a way as not working, not eating. Then again, the ultimate obstacle and nuisance that they consider they consider society to be would undermine and prevent even this most basic cause and effect of one's own actions and choices. They won't even let you die in peace. Yet every moment you live will be undermined or considered an obstacle to something. So, for example, take issue with every aspect of how you choose to live, but also disallow or greatly discourage any end or any end of it. So that was section 2. Let's do a couple more of those. They would be, let's see, lazy, quiet, reserved. Let's see. They are meticulous, planners, a meticulous planner. About anything they do, this is because if something is worth doing, it is worth doing with complete effort and ability. If it isn't, why bother doing it at all? So they're not for doing things half-heartedly. Makes no sense. So I guess that one's pretty self-explanatory. This leads to them either doing something very effectively or doing nothing at all ever. Either extremely engaged or completely indifferent. Never any in between. This surprises others with how stark of a contrast it is between their genius or exceptional performance in one area, their chosen field, or anything they deem worthy of their attention, and they're completely what could it be? They're completely seemingly complete lack of value for themselves. Seemingly complete lack of value for themselves. For example, their health. So tying into that would be they never go to the doctor. They neglect personal health, but not necessarily hygiene. Okay, so this is good because it creates a tree. Hygiene is valued not for any regard to the self, but either for convenience, i.e. avoid the minor obstacles it may cause, but not if avoiding them is significant enough to create an obstacle itself. Obstacle itself. Hygiene is not valued. Is valued not to impress others, but rather to avoid the consequences they are keenly aware it would create. I.e., they don't care about the process of what it appeases. Let's say superficiality. But fully recognize its role and importance to others. Thus, though they value it far less than others, not at all even, they are always keenly aware and sort of conscious to where it would be noticed or relevant. Those more superficial than them, i.e., those who supposedly care, miss a lot of the same things. They see and enact. What else? So that was a good little chain of ideas. So here I could do it as like a little plug. We could show it with that tree. What is the Anonymous Author series? It's a series where I create characters, ideas, and stories from on the fly, where I improvise and create all sorts of long lines and chains and trees of ideas. It's very interesting to do on stream because you never know what you're going to come up with and how far it's going to go. So this is some of the work from my episode 2. And I'm going to continue it. It's almost like an AI dungeon run, but where you just completely come up with the story yourself. And you can go anywhere you want with it as long as you want. And I do these fairly regularly. So here's a good example. So we were doing some character traits, meticulous planner. So let's create another trait and go in depth as to what it would be. His trait could be